Good evening, Boilermakers. My name is Ryan Kirchner, and I'm the Associate Director of Recruitment for the Polytechnic Institute. And I want to thank you for joining us for this very special YouTube Live broadcast. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy so far this summer. So before we get into our panel discussion, I first want to introduce Dr. Gary Bertoline for an opening message. He is the Dean of the Purdue Polytechnic Institute and a Distinguished Professor of Computer Graphics Technology and Computer and Information Technology at Purdue University. So good evening, Dean Bertoline. Why don't you go ahead and share your message, please. And Dean, you're muted currently.
I was unmuted before. Sorry about that. So welcome, everyone. I'm Gary Bertoline. I'm the Dean of the college. I was just testing everyone, make sure it was working okay. So I've been Dean of the college. I'm just starting my 10th year. I've been at Purdue since 1990. It's a great place. One of the best in the nation, and we can talk more about that. Actually, I talk about Purdue being one of the best universities in the universe, and that is very true. Obviously, we're living in very, very extraordinary times. The COVID-19, the pandemic that we're dealing with, all the unknowns that go along with that. We're going to talk a lot more about how Purdue is going to handle that this evening, but also what's going on in the nation regarding the national protests, the diversity issues that we have. I made a statement as dean about a month ago on my feelings personally on this, as well as what we want to do as a college. Our college prides itself in leading. There are 10 different colleges here at Purdue University, and the Polytechnic is really a leader. We've really stood up in the last few years. We're growing faster than anyone. We have great programs. Our students get placed very early and often, we say. But we want to lead in this whole idea of what's going on with the protests and Black Lives Matter. We're starting an effort, and some of the faculty that are involved are actually on this video this evening. We are talking about having an initiative around something we call anti-racism or anti-racist. And you'll be hearing a little bit more about that going forward, but we take that responsibility very, very seriously. We can talk more about that a little bit more this evening. I know you have a lot of questions, but I can assure you that you coming to Purdue, if you're entering freshman into the Polytechnic, if you're a returning student, you can look forward to a great experience, even in this challenging times that we have with COVID-19. And you're going to hear from some of that from our dream team that's doing some amazing things this summer to give everyone the best possible experience this fall. So I'm looking forward to having more conversations, and I'll work on my mute button a little bit here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dean Bertoline. I really appreciate that. And yeah, this is definitely something we're looking forward to seeing how these adjustments are going to play out, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So just want to give you a quick introduction to what the conversation is going to be like tonight. We're going to focus in on the Protect Purdue plan and obviously the adjustments we're making for the fall semester. So our panelists are going to address that tonight and hopefully answer the questions that you have to the best of their knowledge and the ability they have with the information and the guidelines that we are currently working with as well. So you can type in some questions for us through the YouTube chat live right now in that function. So you can sign in with your Google account or create one really quickly and type in those questions. We have some topics that we already established ahead of time to kind of go through based on the conversations that have been happening here on campus, but we want to know if you have some extra questions as well. So go ahead and type those in. We have one of our professors, Professor Nicole Hands. She's in the chat room right now responding to some questions. So quick shout out to her and thank her for joining us in that chat room as well. But like I said, we'll try to pull those questions out as best we can when we go through these topics. So we also have this broadcast being recorded, so we can you can check this out again later on at polytechnic.purdue.edu/live. So if you miss any portions of it, you can go and review it at a later time as well. So with that, I'll go and have our panelists introduce themselves. So if you could just please share your name, your title, the academic area that you teach, and the topics that your group was responsible for in terms of the conversations you've been having on campus. So we'll start out with Abrar, please.
All right, hello. My name is Abrar Hammoud. I'm a clinical assistant professor in technology, leadership, and innovation. And the group that I worked with this summer as part of this larger team was focusing on gathering information from students and from faculty about what worked in the past before COVID-19, how the transition was in the spring, and what they're anticipating in the future, in the fall and then beyond.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Next up is Ale.
Good evening. My name is Alejandra Magana. I'm a professor in the Computer and Information Technology Department. And the group I work with, we primarily focus on identifying best pedagogical approaches to interact with students in and outside of the classroom. And then we try to see how can we replicate those forms of communication, interaction, and teaching and learning. And you know, how can those be done safely as part of the fall semester, as well as effectively. So thank you very much for having me here.
Oh, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Next up is April.
Hi, I'm April Cheung. I'm Assistant Professor of Practice of Electrical Engineering Technology, and I teach AC and power electronics and also embedded digital systems. And our group focused on instructional designs in the classroom. And so that includes how the faculty members, what they do within the classroom, and sometimes it's communication. So there is a little bit of information that might be similar to what Dr. Ali has. And so we'll talk about those. Thanks for having me here.
All right, thank you, April. And next up is Pat.
Hi, I'm Pat Connolly. I'm the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs and Learning Innovation in the Polytechnic. I've been at Purdue since 1996, and my areas of expertise were in computer graphics technology, and my research areas are virtual reality, augmented reality, and teaching and learning innovation. So it's probably good that that's part of my title. And I'm just excited for this fall. I think that as we go through this conversation tonight, we're going to hear an awful lot about some very interesting and exciting opportunities that we weren't expecting to have. But this COVID-19 thing has opened some doors for us that I think will help us to continue to move the Polytechnic forward in great ways. So I'm excited.
All right, thank you very much, Pat. And we did have another panelist, but I think she's having some technical difficulties because we no longer have her in our chat room right now. So hopefully she'll be able to come back, and we'll get her involved in our conversation when she does. So again, our topics tonight are really related to the Protect Purdue Pledge. So I want to make sure everyone is aware of what all that entails if you haven't already reviewed it. There are three aspects to it, and I want you to keep these in mind as we go through our discussion tonight. So the first aspect is called Protect Myself. So Pat, could you tell us what are some of the actions that students can take to protect themselves during their time on campus?
Sure. So the pledge really is a very extraordinary measure where we're each taking ownership for allowing the fall semester to happen and to make it be successful. The first aspect is to protect myself. Each individual that's going to be on campus this fall, be it student or staff or faculty, has the responsibility of making sure that you keep yourself well. That includes things like monitoring yourself for any symptoms of COVID, but also doing things that will prevent you from potentially catching COVID. That would include things like making sure you wash your hands all the time, and that you get the necessary medical care, including a flu shot, anything that could help keep us all healthy. That's this first aspect.
All right, thanks, Pat. The next section of the Protect Purdue Pledge is protecting others. So how could you explain what we are expected to do for that?
Okay, so obviously the next part of making sure that all of us stay healthy is doing what we can to make sure we protect each other. So wearing face masks as required on campus. Some people don't think that's a very popular thing, but if it can keep one of us healthy and keep us an explosion of COVID from happening on campus, it's worth it. If you've been exposed, allowing yourself to go through the Purdue processes of the tracking and making sure that everybody who's been contacted is very carefully watching themselves. Make sure you stay home, stay isolated if you have been exposed. But also there's another aspect to this. It's hard sometimes to go through this process of protecting ourselves and each other. And there are going to be fellow students or other people on campus that may be struggling, that may get depressed, that may have issues of anxiety because of these things. And it behooves each of us as true Boilermakers, if we see someone that's hurting, someone that needs help, that we reach out and we do what we can to make sure that we all get through this together. But it's very important that we do the things like wearing the masks and the social distancing, both in the classroom and out of the classroom, on campus and off campus, so that we can make sure that we keep the community as a whole healthy so that the fall semester can happen.
And Pat, I think you just answered the last part of the Protect Purdue Pledge is how do we protect the Purdue community? Anything additional you want to add? Anything, face masks and the tracing, anything else you want to add in?
One more thing. Part of the responsibility is as we learn more and more about this disease, we're learning that the germs can survive on surfaces and in the air. And so it's part of our process is going to be to make sure we keep our spaces clean, that we do the things that will disinfect surfaces as appropriate, and making sure that we're doing those things to make everybody safer. I guess that's the best way to put it there. If for the fall semester to work, each and every member of the Purdue community is going to have to step up and keep the pledge.
All right, thank you very much for going through the details of that. I really appreciate it. And Dean Bertoline, do you have anything to add? Any words of encouragement for our students in terms of following these 3 guidelines?
Sure. This is going to be hard to get used to. I mean, I'm finding it hard to get used to. Occasionally I will, go into a space and suddenly remember I don't have my mask on. It'll take a little while to get used to this. West Lafayette, the city of West Lafayette, where Purdue is located, just yesterday required everyone to wear face masks. And so the community is embracing this also in addition to the campus. You have to know that we were one of the first universities in the nation to say and make a commitment that we're going to be open in the fall. You have no idea the amount of preparation that's gone on between now and when you as students show up on campus. We've done everything in our power, looking at the science, looking at successes and failures around the country and around the world to learn from that. And until we have a vaccine, there isn't much we can do except try to protect each other. It has been proven without any doubt that face masks will make a huge difference in the spread of this virus. I realize that as young people, if you read what the facts are, young people in general do not get very seriously ill with this. There are exceptions, okay? But you are surrounded with other people, and this isn't really about you. Think about how you're contributing to the success of the university. This is your university. If we are forced to close down because students haven't done their part and faculty haven't done their part and staff haven't done that part, we're detracting from us as a university. We are a great university. We rally around causes. We put the first person on the moon, okay? We're very proud of that fact. We do hard things, okay? And I want you all to think seriously about this and think about what you can do to keep Purdue safe. If you have a favorite professor, in other words, you're upperclassman and you have a favorite professor, how would you feel if that professor got ill? And it was because students didn't follow good guidelines, or your roommate gets sick, okay? There's all kinds of implications for people that you care about, and always think in that manner. And let's rise up, let's do the right thing, and let us as Polytechnic students, faculty, and staff really show the rest of the university how to do this. And I know we can do this. We have great students, we have a great faculty and staff, and we're up to this. And so start thinking about this when you come to campus, how you're going to contribute to us being safe.
Ryan, can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just kind of want to show off. I don't know if this will show up or not. My very cool face mask. You know, this is going to become a fashion statement on campus to have the coolest face mask. And I'm in the lead right now because I have a Boilermaker face mask. And so I just kind of want to brag about that a little bit. So I challenge all of the incoming students to have a better Boilermaker mask than that one. Ha.
I was gonna say I got my wellness kit, so I got my mask here. I don't think it's as cool as yours, but I got this other one too, a little more simple design, but still pretty cool. Still showing off that Purdue spirit. So yeah, that's definitely a cool thing to do. I do want to take a quick break and have our last panelist. She was able to reconnect. Sarah, would you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick for us, please?
Sure, thanks. Sarah Leach, and I teach in the Purdue Polytechnic's School of Engineering Technology, and usually I teach materials and manufacturing process courses.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. So the panels that we've brought together today are part of what we're calling the Dream Team. And Pat, could you tell us a little bit about how this team was created, the mission and directive that was given to them, and how that all came about?
Sure. So this was an idea of our dean. Gary actually came up with the idea of what if we pulled together some of the best and brightest that we have in the Polytechnic and asked them to help us prepare for this fall semester and beyond. One of the things that COVID has done for us is kind of open the doors to using technology more in our teaching. And so we actually pulled together, I think it was 16 of the best faculty, the best teachers that we have in the college. They're brilliant. And then they received the charge to go ahead and look at developing some best practices for the classroom. Now that definition of classroom has changed. It's no longer just when we're seated in a presence, in a physical presence in a room. It's also when we're online or when we may have a part online and a part physical presence class. And so this expansion of what does it mean to have a classroom is part of the challenge of this group. And they were given this charge to develop some best practices documentation. And they broke into groups, and we have representatives of these groups tonight to talk about technologies, pedagogies and practices, communications, and outreach. And I think that these faculty and what the work that they have done is going to provide this wonderful resource for all of our faculty going forward, both in the fall and of course beyond that. And it is going to be a living document. As we learn things, we'll change it, we'll update it, we'll improve it. But the Polytechnic will be leading Purdue University in how we teach. And that's very exciting.
All right, and Dean Bertoline, do you have anything additional to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. We're actually testing this already. So we have some of our students in the aviation program started on Monday. They had, because of the nature of their curriculum, they actually had to come back. And so we're flying again, for example, and we were unable to allow our flight students to fly earlier this spring. But we also have some summer courses going on. And Pat and I were just given an example. Nathan Menser from our TLI program, one of our best faculty members, he sent us an update. He teaches an introductory course, Tech 120. It's our design thinking course. And he has students from all over the world attending his class and doing it quite successfully, including team-based projects. And so we're actually testing some of these methodologies this summer, and I am very confident that our students are going to have a great experience, whether they are doing it face-to-face, blended, or online, because of this extra preparation that's going on and all the hard work of this Dream Team faculty.
All right, excellent. Thank you both for that. And actually, Pat, we had a great question come in from the chat that's related to your explanation of the Protect Purdue Pledge, and kind of referenced it already with our summer classes occurring right now. The question is, how is it being enforced? You know, are there repercussions, consequences, things along that line? And yes, I can answer is it being enforced now? Yes, it absolutely is. I was in a classroom today with some of our Polytechnic high school students who have joined us for a couple of classes this summer, and they're wearing the masks, they're social distancing in the chairs and the desks. So it is happening as we speak. But how is the enforcement working for our students?
So the university has put out some standards that they would like to enforce kind of across the board, and basically it's kind of a 4-step process as I understand it. The first step is to basically ask. If someone isn't abiding by the rules, basically ask if you can help. Is there a problem? I mean, some people can't wear masks, right? It might be because of a medical condition or some other thing. So we can't just assume that someone isn't obeying the rules because they want to cause trouble. We need to ask and then offer to help. And that's kind of the second part of it. The third step would be, okay, if someone really is being kind of rebellious and not living up to the pledge, then maybe that gets reported to the dean of students if it's a student. If it's a faculty member, it gets reported to their department head. And then we let the appropriate university processes take place to take care of that issue. But hopefully those kinds of situations where we have someone that just comes in and flatly refuses to do that will be very, very few and far between. And that's part of the Purdue community, the feeling that we want to make sure we build.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And yeah, I think as we move forward, Purdue is certainly going to keep communicating with all of our students about what's expected of them as you move back to campus or move to campus for the first time as well. You'll certainly hear a lot more from Purdue. So, all right, I want to turn now to one of our panelists, Abrar. You mentioned earlier that you're working on gathering feedback from students and our faculty and staff here about what we can do. So I know since the second half of our spring semester shifted online, how did that work? What did we learn from that experience?
Well, thank you, Ryan, for the question. So April and Ali kind of touched upon the importance of communication. And that was one of the things that we found was establishing really clear and consistent communication, both among the faculty and the staff and amongst the students and between each of those constituent groups was really important. That took a tremendous effort. It took effort on both the parts of the students and the faculty. And we really relied on each other to extend grace and also to work together when there were technical issues to get things on board. So I think, you know, one thing I really want to mention is this dedication to instructional excellence that is part of what one of our Polytechnic pillars is. It's one of the reasons why our college is so strong. And it's because of this give and take and growing together that it happens. None of the faculty could anticipate what would happen in the future. None of the students could anticipate it. And so it was these strong relationships that had been established between them in the early part of the semester that really helped carry through towards the end. And I also want to mention something that Associate Dean Connolly touched upon, which is the feelings of isolation that can happen. And so that was really key. And that was one of the biggest concerns that faculty members had was, how do I remain connected to my students? How do I make sure that my students know that I'm there for them? And they found several different ways and different technologies to do that, which is what some of my colleagues here are going to be able to talk about.
I think, and actually a follow-up, have you been able to gain a sense of what students might be expecting for this fall? what our faculty are expecting of our students as well.
So on both parts, we're expecting there to be flexibility. We're expecting there to be flexibility because of this unknown factor. And so from the instructor's side, being mindful of that and having contingency plans in place, being very clear about what the expectations are, and also just walking students through how things are going to work in Plan B scenarios, in Plan C scenarios is going to be really important. Not only does it help in terms of reducing uncertainty and the anxiety that comes with that, just when everyone's on the same page, it helps the students to have a much better experience in the classroom, and it also helps the instructors to be able to deliver that experience.
That's great, and actually that's a great transition to kind of this next question I'm going to ask. And this, April, this is a question for you. So how like the actual logistics of classes and lectures, and how is that going to be managed? What's the plan to de-densify the larger lectures, and what do the logistics of that look like based on the conversations you've had?
Well, thank you. And so as we say, communication is really important. And one of the things to protect Purdue and de-densify is there are several methods. Some instructors may choose to go online, and if that is approved by their department. And I think a lot of the instructors will choose to have rotations in the classroom. And for example, one set of students will come to the classroom face-to-face one day, and then another day will be another set of students to come to the classroom. But when the day that they are not in the classroom, they're going to be attending the class online. And then, some of the students may choose to have it totally online, but they will attend the class synchronously. Now, we also understand that you might not have access at a certain time, or so most of the classrooms, I think almost all of the classroom already equipped that they can record the lectures. And so those recorded lectures can be available for students to view asynchronously. And so there's various ways. And now, because we're switching to this, online and face-to-face, that means that instructors will have to change a little bit of what they teach in the classroom itself, because you're going to have to look for chat rooms and see who, questions from there. Some of the students may be raising hand in the classroom. So they would have to, our guidelines is look at the material, only the most critical information in the classroom. And then some of the other information will be delivered online. And that comes down to the students also to watch out for and be very diligent about planning for their semester at the very beginning, allowing time to watch and read all the materials posted in Brightspace, and planning times to maybe schedule for equipment, maybe schedule for instructors' time. And so there is a lot of planning, both on the faculty side and also the student side, that we need to work together. And when we come together at the beginning of the just to make sure that we all know how to contact the instructor, and what the schedule look like, when do you need to show up to class, and when and where you attend the lectures.
Well, and actually, thank you for that. That's great to know that there's just different options, different rotations available. And you mentioned the instructors getting approval for switching to an online section. And actually, Pat, I'm going to turn to you. You might be able to hopefully answer this. How does that work? Do we expect to see more classes added in online, or and what exactly is that going to look like?
So it's kind of a mixed bag. That's a great question, and I can answer with about 80% confidence. I know that they are in the process of continually re-looking at, do we have enough sections of this? Do we have enough online sections? Do we need more online courses for those who have chosen the online option? And or on-campus students who may need to do this hybrid or high flex approach where sometimes they're in the classroom, sometimes they're online, so that everybody in the class gets an opportunity to be physically present, but also nobody misses what's going on. So at this point, it's a moving target, and that's going to be in flux for another couple of weeks until the final schedules are ironed out and we make sure we're meeting as many needs as we possibly can so students can progress.
All right, thank you, Pat. And we did have a question from the chat that is related to the online option and something that April mentioned as well, the online classes being live. What exactly does that mean? And maybe April, you could speak to that. How will students access the class, the lecture that's online? Where will that take place?
So instructors, when we have several means and technologies available for us, and I think Sarah can speak to that later on. So when I used to do this in my class, that when I teach a class, I already have WebEx on. So a link will be sent to students, and they can access that link and they can attend, because my class is at 7:30 usually in the morning, and sometimes students, by the time they get to the bus and get to the classroom, sometimes we're getting ready to leave. So some of them will choose to attend online, and so they can access a link and then they can participate also in the classroom. So WebEx, you can do that. Brightspace, we have a virtual classroom. I also did that last semester. And also now we have Teams. And it's also just like what we have now here, and we can have the in the screen with the lecture material and using chat to talk and ask questions, just the same as the students in the classroom. So they just need to have that link to access the classroom.
Oh, thank you very much for explaining that. And you mentioned Brightspace a couple of times, and Sarah, I'm going to turn to you. I think this is one area that your group has been talking about. What exactly is Brightspace? How will students access that? What are the tools that are available in there that will help our students in their experience?
Oh, okay, Ryan, thanks. Good question. Brightspace is our learning management system. So it is, all the instructors are going to be using Brightspace as the entry point for their course. So a student would log in with their career account information and they would get a list of courses. They can then choose which course they're wanting to check in. And each course then in Brightspace has information about the entire semester, what to do that week, assignments, the tools available in Brightspace. There are probably too many to even think about right now, but as April mentioned, there's a virtual classroom. There is an email function so the instructor can communicate with the students. There's our discussion boards. There are tools there for the instructor to create assignments, and a student can check on their grades as the semester progresses. Instructors can link their videos in Brightspace, so the student, it's there right there in the Brightspace page. Once the student has logged in, they can just go and look at recorded information. So there are a lot of options in Brightspace and a lot of tools to make sure that everybody stays connected and involved and engaged.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. And April, I'm going to turn back to you because you mentioned lecture classes, rotating schedules, students going to be in the class and then sometimes online, but the Polytechnic really focuses on that hands-on experience in the lab sections. And so will students still be in labs? How is that going to work with those lab schedules?
Yes, and so good question in here. So the lab, it depends on what that lab is. Some of the instructors, they may choose to have, if the equipment is, the price affordable wise, the instructor can choose to have it also online, so students can check off online. And then some of the instructor, if equipment related, that they need to have those equipment, and we might need to schedule some time with the equipment. But a lot of times, we're also, mandatory, we need to have shield on, the face shield, and also the mask when we're there. It's really important if we're in the lab that we clean after ourselves, just what we have been doing, but we just need to do more of that and keeping a little bit of a distance, but we need to have cleaning our service area after we're done, and we just need to be very vigilant about doing that, sanitizing it and cleaning it afterwards. But a lot of times, some of the students may choose to, if the lab is allowed, to choose their work at home, and technology is available for us to check students off using camera and using the Teams, for example, to check students off. So depending on the instructor, and some of the classes may switch to online, but they're still doing labs. Now, some of the labs might be rotating students in to do some of the work. You might expect some instructor will have a lot of time that students come in and do several things instead of small chunks at a time. And so there are several ways that instructors are doing tackling this. But we need to have this hands-on experience, and we're doing our best to do that.
I'd just like to add really quickly to what April was sharing is, some of our responses from other instructors that taught labs was that they ended up sending out to their students little kits in the mail with the materials that they would need to conduct the labs at home. And that actually was really positively received. I don't know about you, but when I get a letter in the mail, I'm really excited. When I get an email, not so much. And so just to have something come that was really like personalized and hands-on, and you could still do the work and engage with your teammates in your class that way was also another thing that had worked in the spring and might be considered in the fall too.
That's really fun. I didn't even think about that, having that personal experience with that. Are there labs that students, and April, maybe you'll be answer this, or anybody else can jump in too, labs that students can access through a remote connection as well, just to make sure that they have the opportunity to maybe work with different software and things along those lines?
Yes, and a lot of the labs in the springtime, we were given some access and instructions for students to actually access those lab computers remotely. And I have some students try that, and as long as they have good internet connections, they can access those particular computers at their own home and use those software. So we give out the resources available for them to try that out. Some of the software are free online, so we give them the access to do that, trying to help students out in that regard. Now, obviously, some of the equipment is heavy duty, required presence of the professors when they're using it. So we encourage the professors to record very short videos about using those equipment. And so the students go in there, they may have a shortened time experience with that equipment. So now they can go back and reference some of the videos, but short videos, not like long, they have to drawn out, but short videos to teach them or reference and remind them what they were doing in the lab. So those are some of the things that we suggest to faculty members as they come into this new challenge.
All right, thank you. April, we'll stick with you. We actually lost one of our panelists. She had an automatic update that happened, but we're kind of referring to communication in the classroom and even outside the classroom. How are our students going to be educated, maybe given some guidance on what that means? If they're working on a group project, what do we expect them to do and to maintain safe communication while they're working?
Yeah, so obviously we have to maintain this safe distance. So some instructors may choose to have face-to-face instructions with students, group work within the classroom. But in those cases, they have to have their face shield on. And in our group, we suggested that if you have group work, you also have students online, so you might be able to team up students online with those that is in face-to-face. Our technology is there. We need to make sure that students get used to bright space before they come to class, and then also get used to using Teams. And so when we do that, then when they come in, they already know how to group work and how to collaborate with each other using the technology, just the simple, how to use this, how to chat, how to look at participants. And we're also encouraging short video clips on how to use these things, and they are available for students to view in a student's viewpoint, and so they can get used to that. So it's really important, as I mentioned before, that preparation for the next semester, both faculty and students, is really important. Get used to using Brightspace, get used to use Teams. Those would be the two most things that would be really helping in the student success.
All right, thanks, April. And Ale, you're back. We actually just started a conversation about communications inside the classroom, student expectations, faculty, what they expect to do. I'm not sure how much you heard of April's response, but do you have anything that you would like to add in terms of what your group has discussed so far?
Right. So my apologies. I had an update, unplanned update, and the computer took a life on its own. So I didn't really. I missed what April just mentioned, but I would like to say that our group really tried to focus on all the possible ways in which we need to communicate with students, either office hours, teamwork, teaching, sharing information, and so. We are trying to see really what can be done in the classroom. How are we going to use that precious face-to-face time? And then how can a big component of our biggest concern is how could we support teamwork safely? So there are multiple strategies that we came up with. And for example, in my own classroom, we follow a semester-long project. And the way we are going to work with teamwork is really, we are going to offer students synchronous online teamwork sessions. And so now we have to learn how to use breakout rooms. And, so all teams will be joining together in class time. And there will always be someone, for those students who are not in the physical lecture, there will be always someone, one of my teaching assistants, online, facilitating this team interaction, responding questions related to the project. And so having that togetherness, having that space to be together online will be critical for supporting students in how they work together as teams, and then how we can facilitate feedback in the process. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. We actually have a question I want to bring out from our chat. And maybe Pat, you might be able to answer this, or Dean Bertolini, you might be able to respond as well. But can you guarantee that the classes that students are currently registered for will still be there in the original time slot or even a new time slot? Do we have any expectation of things shifting like that in terms of classes being adjusted or moved around, anything like that?
So I'll go back to what I was talking about a little earlier. I'm 80% confident that the schedule's there at this point. I know that there are going to be some changes between now and I think it's July 23rd when things are locked down and the schedules will be released. And after that, there will be an open period where students can adjust to other possibilities if they need to. So I think that the answer is not yet, but soon we'll have these things finalized. And the reason why it's not finalized yet is because of the shifting sand that we're working on with regards to online or on campus, what's needed for graduation, how can students progress, what's available, what needs to be available. And so if we had locked it down earlier than this, we would have missed, I think, a lot of student needs to progress or to graduate.
All right, thank you, Pat. I appreciate that. So one question I have, Abrar, you may be able to answer this, but probably not, based on actually what Pat just said about things shifting. Obviously, we're talking about the fall semester, a huge adjustment to returning to campus. How will we potentially expect the spring to look if we can even go that far? I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from this fall semester, but what kind of, anything you can add about any expectations for the spring once we get to that point?
I think you know, the key things are just to maintain this open mind and flexibility. We're learning about these different tools and their different functionalities, and we never would have done that, or it would have taken us quite a bit longer to get to the point where we are right now had we not had, you know, this pandemic. And so I think remaining flexible and trying out new things and having the space to be creative with the way that we deliver instruction is going to be key. And fortunately, we have a supportive administration from our dean's office that encourages us to try new things. So I think that in the spring, we'll see what works well in the fall. We'll carry some of that over. And the goal is then to continue to build upon it instead of, you know, slipping backward into the old ways, to continue to innovate in the ways that we're teaching and learning.
I appreciate that, Abrar. Thank you. And Dean Bertoline, I want to loop you back in here just to kind of get your sense of kind of an overview of, again, why the dream team was assembled and how we, then the college, the Polytechnic, is adapting and adjusting to this new information, any new conditions that this pandemic is going to bring about, just to kind of bring it all back together for us.
Well, we basically wanted to lock our brightest minds in the same room and see what they could come up with. We don't know exactly what we're up against. We have to plan for all kinds of different scenarios. We may not actually make it through the semester, depending on how things go, and whether that's because of what happens on campus or what happens in the state or nationally. And so, we had to really look at ways of approaching the fall semester so that we give it our best effort. The university is doing a great job, by the way. I mean, the provost office, they have their own group that's working on this. We have a few faculty on that one. But we wanted to go the extra yard. We actually thought that we could do and prepare one of the best learning scenarios possible, given the constraints that we have, but we have to prepare for it. And by putting our best faculty together over the summer to work on this, we are very, very confident that we're going to offer our students a great experience. But we also know that if things change for whatever reason, we will be ready for that also. We haven't talked about other things that we're experimenting with, or virtual labs. There's actually some work being done on that to help us with some of the challenges that we have with laboratory settings. And as I told you earlier, we are actually doing some of the teaching this summer. So we're, about 6 weeks ahead of what we're going to advise our faculty in general to do with their courses. And just to lend a little bit of credibility to what I'm saying, I am teaching a course this fall. So I am going through this also. I am preparing the syllabus. I'm preparing both an online version of my course, a mixed model. I have a course that's going to be a lot of discussion. So I have to face all of these. And so, me as the leader of the college, I'm kind of living this myself, and I think I can do a much better job in guiding faculty, helping faculty, empathizing with faculty, empathizing with students. Because we are all in on this. We have spent about the last 6 years trying to create the best learning environment on the campus. And that's what the Polytechnic is really about. And we didn't want to lose any of that momentum. And that's why we put this group together, to ensure that we still are noted for our great learning experience. And I'm very, very confident with the people we have working on this, that we are going to have, we'll be really prepared, but also have the best experience possible for the students.
All right, thank you, Dean Bertoline. I really appreciate that. And we just want to give a quick reminder that if you haven't already started checking your Purdue email, please do that, because you're going to get a lot of information as we move forward from Purdue, any announcements, any changes, expectations, how things will work with student organizations, student life, what you can expect with athletics, anything along those lines. obviously with social distancing in mind, keeping everyone safe, following that Protect Purdue Pledge. Just keep an eye on information and announcements from the university, from the Polytechnic itself as well. I do want to send a quick thank you to Professor Nicole Hands in our chat room, responding to tons of questions. So I appreciate her work, and again, thank you for the questions that you had sent in as well. And just a quick thank you as well to our panelists, Dean Bertoline, and all of our Dream Team panelists, Pat Connolly as well. Thank you for joining us tonight and sharing all this great information about what the Polytechnic is doing to make sure that we're having a safe and healthy campus when we get to the fall, for those of us who are joining in the fall semester. Like I mentioned before, you can watch this broadcast again at polytechnic.purdue.edu/live. If you did have a question or you think of something later that you didn't get into the chat, please send us an email, techrecruit@purdue.edu. We'd be happy to respond to you there. So thank you again for watching tonight. Really appreciate it. Have a safe and healthy rest of your summer. Thank you again to our panelists. And please take that Protect Purdue pledge to heart. And when you get here to campus, help everyone be safe and healthy. So wherever you are, if it's here or at home, please make sure you're keeping all those things in mind. So thank you all again. Have a great evening, and boiler up.
Boiler up.